The courtroom fell into a hush as the tall white lawyer in a gray suit stood up, his voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. "Your Honor, I'd like to question the boy directly," he said, gesturing toward the witness stand. He was the one caught trespassing. The boy, 12, black and trembling slightly, sat upright in the wooden chair. His sneakers barely touched the floor. His name was Miles Jefferson, and his eyes flicked around the room searching for his father, who wasn't there yet. The judge, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and tired hands, gave a slight nod. The lawyer, Mr. Blake Canning, turned and approached the boy like a hawk circling a rabbit. "Miles," he said, his tone falsely gentle, "you're a smart kid, right?" Miles didn't respond. "Come on, speak up. You do well in school?" "I guess," Miles mumbled. "You guess." Canning chuckled dryly. He turned to the courtroom, subtly performing. "Well, I guess you also knew you weren't supposed to be on private property, didn't you?" Objection murmurs stirred from the backbenches, but no one interrupted. "I was just what? Trying to break into a private law firm's offices? I was looking for my dad," Miles said, his voice suddenly louder. "Oh, were you?" Canning said, feigning surprise. "And does your dad work at a law firm? What's he do? Mop the floors?" Laughter rippled through a few seats. The judge's gavel tapped twice. "Mr. Canning." But Miles didn't flinch this time. He lifted his chin. "My dad's a lawyer." Canning raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? A lawyer? And what's his name?" Before Miles could answer, the heavy courtroom doors creaked open. Every head turned. A tall black man in a navy suit strode in with calm authority. His gait was precise, his gaze direct. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a file folder in the other. Canning blinked. "Excuse me, sir, this is a closed session." The man didn't break stride as he approached the defense table. "Apologies for my delay, Your Honor," he said smoothly, placing the file down. "I'm Miles Jefferson Sr., lead counsel for the defense, and the boy's father." Silence rippled like a wave across the room. Canning froze. The judge leaned forward, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Mr. Jefferson," she said, her tone shifting. "You're the federal advisor on civil litigation?" "That's correct." Canning stepped back, pale now. Jefferson turned to his son. "You okay?" Miles nodded, tears threatening but unspilled. Jefferson turned back to the judge. "I believe we have a few things to clear up about how this case was handled, starting with the unlawful detainment of my son." The air in the room changed. A storm was coming, and everyone knew it. The prosecutor scrambled to regain control. "Your Honor," Canning said stiffly, "this sudden appearance doesn't change the facts. The boy was caught in a restricted area." Jefferson cut in, his voice low but firm. "The facts, Mr. Canning, are that my son was detained without a guardian present, interrogated without counsel, and brought before a judge without due process." Canning scoffed. "With all due respect, Mr. Jefferson, your respect is neither required nor believed." The judge cleared her throat. "Let's proceed carefully, Mr. Jefferson, would you like to enter a formal motion?" "I already have. Filed electronically 30 minutes ago, along with the security footage from the lobby where my son was asking the receptionist for help." There was a pause. Everyone turned to Canning, who looked toward the assistant district attorney sitting 2 rows behind. She opened her laptop quickly, typing. Jefferson moved to the defense table, his movements calm, controlled. He gently touched Miles's shoulder before whispering, "I'm here now. You did well." Miles let out a shaky breath he'd been holding for too long. "I'm requesting immediate dismissal of all charges," Jefferson continued, facing the bench, "and formal reprimand of the officers involved in the detainment." Canning stepped forward again, desperate now. "This is highly irregular. There was a complaint from our client. His office was entered after hours." "And that client," Jefferson said, lifting the folder, "has a record of falsely reporting incidents involving minors. 2 previous cases, both involving black teenagers." He placed printed copies on the judge's desk. The judge flipped through them, her expression shifting from procedural detachment to something more serious. Concern. Disbelief. Canning's face tightened. "You're trying to turn this into a civil rights circus." Jefferson didn't blink. I don't need to try. The facts speak for themselves. For a long moment, no one spoke. The judge finally looked toward Miles. Miles, when you entered the building, what were you doing? I was trying to find my dad, he said quietly. His phone died. He told me to wait at home, but I got scared when it got dark. I knew where he worked. She nodded, then turned to Canning. Do you have anything else to present? Canning's lips pressed thin. No, Your Honor. Then I'm dismissing all charges with prejudice. Her gavel fell. Mr. Jefferson, I'd also advise you to file a formal grievance. What happened here was deeply inappropriate. I intend to, Jefferson replied, calm but cutting. As people began gathering their things, Jefferson knelt beside his son and looked him in the eye. You stood tall, even when they tried to make you feel small. That's the hardest thing a man can do. Miles looked down, then up again. Were you scared? Jefferson hesitated. Angry, but not scared, because I knew the truth. And I knew you'd hold on to it too. Outside, the sky had darkened, but the lights of the courthouse glowed. The two walked out together, father and son, their silhouettes framed by glass and steel. The elevator doors closed with a soft hiss, sealing Miles and his father inside. Jefferson loosened his tie slightly, his face still taut with control. Miles stared at the floor, then peeked up. Are you in trouble because of me? Jefferson looked down and met his son's eyes. No, son, I'm going to make sure the people who put you in trouble answer for it. Miles nodded slowly, but didn't look convinced. Downstairs, as they stepped into the lobby, two courthouse staffers glanced their way. One of them whispered something under her breath. Jefferson caught it. He always did. That's the guy. National Civil Lit Board, right? He kept walking. Outside, the air was thick with summer humidity. Car horns inched through traffic. A group of law interns clustered around a bench, scrolling their phones. Jefferson's Tesla was parked a few blocks down. As they walked, Miles tugged his father's sleeve. Why did that man laugh at me, the lawyer? Jefferson slowed. Because some people still think power belongs to them. That respect is something you earn only if you look or speak a certain way. And when they see someone like you, confident, smart, unafraid, they don't know what to do with it. Miles was quiet for a moment. Then, I didn't feel smart. You didn't need to be. You just needed to tell the truth. That's smarter than most grown men in that courtroom. At the car, Jefferson unlocked the door remotely. Before getting in, he turned to Miles. There's something I didn't tell you. I was late today because I was in D.C., testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Miles's eyes widened. Like, on TV? Jefferson smirked. Yeah, but you were the one who handled the real pressure today. The mood shifted when Jefferson's phone buzzed. He checked it, lips tightening. What is it? Miles asked. Canning just gave a statement to the press. He's framing it like your presence at the firm was a security breach and says he intends to pursue civil damages on behalf of his client. But it was dismissed. Courtroom dismissal doesn't stop people from spinning narratives. Jefferson got into the car, pulling the door shut with a soft thud. Miles climbed in beside him. Are they going to lie about me? Yes. But we're going to be louder with the truth. They drove in silence for a few blocks before Miles asked, Can we get ice cream? Jefferson chuckled. That's your priority right now. I just figured we should do something normal. Jefferson nodded. Yeah, that's a good idea. As they pulled into the lot of a small family-owned creamery on the edge of downtown, a local reporter stood across the street, camera crew in tow. Jefferson saw her raise her phone. Miles reached for his dad's hand. Do we ignore them? Jefferson looked over. No, we hold our heads up. Always. And so they stepped out into the light, not as victims, not as headlines, but as something stronger, unshaken. By morning, Jefferson's inbox had exploded. Emails from colleagues, journalists, advocacy groups, even quiet, tentative ones from a few white attorneys he'd gone head-to-head with in the past. Saw what happened yesterday? That lawyer should be disbarred. Your son showed more dignity than half the courtroom. Let us know how we can support. He scrolled through them without flinching. He wasn't looking for support. He was looking for the lies. And there it was. Canning had given an exclusive to a mid-tier news outlet with a history of dog-whistled reporting. The headline was splashed across their homepage: high-ranking civil rights attorney abuses influence after son trespasses in private building. The subheader didn't bother with facts. Sources suggest the child may have been coached. Jefferson closed the browser and leaned back in his office chair. His home office, lined with law books, case files, and a massive framed photo of Thurgood Marshall, felt too quiet. In the living room, Miles was sitting cross-legged on the floor, headphones on, sketching in a spiral notebook. Jefferson watched him for a moment, the boy's brow furrowed in focus, the pencil moving confidently. He didn't need to know this part. Not yet. But the world wouldn't wait. A buzz from Jefferson's phone. A text from Ayanna, his ex-wife. Ayanna: "Miles is trending on TikTok. You okay with that?" Jefferson: "Didn't have a choice. What's the context?" A few seconds passed. Then a link. He clicked it. The video opened with courtroom footage. Someone must have recorded it on their phone illegally. It showed the moment Jefferson entered, briefcase in hand, asserting himself with quiet authority. Then it cut to Miles, sitting in the witness chair, eyes steady. Text overlaid: "He thought he could humiliate a child. He didn't know whose child." It had over 2 million views. He kept watching as the camera panned to Canning's reaction. His stumble, his silence. In the comments, people were furious. Some praising Jefferson, many more marveling at Miles. "That kid is braver than most adults I know. I hope Canning never sees a courtroom again. Why was a child being questioned without his parent?" He leaned back, unsure how to feel. It wasn't the praise that unsettled him. It was how fast it all moved. A few hours ago, they were just getting ice cream. Now his son was part of a national conversation he hadn't asked for. Just then, Miles walked in holding his sketchbook. "Dad, can I show you something?" Jefferson nodded. Miles flipped the page to a cartoon drawing. Mr. Canning, exaggerated nose and all, being dwarfed by a tiny version of himself standing on a courtroom desk. "You made yourself talk?" Jefferson asked, grinning. Miles smirked. "Yeah, I made him cry too." Jefferson ruffled his hair. "Good, but let's also make room for what's next." "What's next?" Jefferson looked toward the window. "Now we decide whether to fight back in court or in the court of public opinion." By Thursday morning, Jefferson had made his decision. He sat in front of a blank Word document, cursor blinking at the top of the page. Headline: "Statement from Miles Jefferson Sr., ESCO." But he didn't type yet. Instead, he stared out the window as the city moved below, delivery trucks inching past, a school bus turning a corner, someone jogging with a golden retriever. Ordinary scenes. But nothing about this week had been ordinary. Behind him, the door creaked. Miles stood there, still in pajamas, his eyes a little puffy from sleep. "You're not going to work?" Jefferson turned in his chair. "Working from here today." "Because of me?" "No," he said. "Because of them." He gestured at the screen. "They're shaping a story that doesn't belong to them. I'm taking it back." Miles wandered in, dragging his sketchbook. "Can I be in the letter?" Jefferson hesitated. "You're already in it, but I need to ask, do you want to be?" Miles thought for a moment. "Yeah, I think I want people to know what really happened." Jefferson nodded, turning back to the screen. The words came faster now. "On Monday afternoon, my son was detained without legal representation, without parental notification, and without just cause. He was treated not as a child, but as a threat because of the color of his skin and the assumptions attached to it. That's not justice. That's profiling. That's negligence. That's systemic." He kept typing, paragraph after paragraph, pouring in what the courtroom hadn't given space for. Anger, clarity, truth. He cited laws. He listed violations. And at the end he added, "To the attorney who mocked my son in a public forum, you forgot that children grow up. You forgot that they remember. And you forgot that some of us know exactly how to fight back." He hit save. By noon, it was live, on his LinkedIn, his professional site, and within minutes being shared by national outlets. CNN picked it up first, then NPR. A legal podcast read it aloud in a 10-minute segment. Social media flooded with support. Public defenders reposted it. Law students annotated it. Activists printed it out and taped it to their office walls. Canning, for his part, went quiet. No press conferences, no follow-up interviews. A leaked memo from inside his firm suggested he'd been placed on leave pending internal review. Jefferson didn't celebrate. He simply made grilled cheese sandwiches for lunch, poured 2 glasses of apple juice, and sat beside Miles on the couch as they watched a rerun of Fresh Prince. "I saw your statement," Miles said. "Some of it was like intense." "It had to be," Jefferson replied. Miles looked up. "Were you always like this, knowing exactly what to say?" Jefferson smiled faintly. "No, I learned it the hard way, but now I use it so you won't have to." Miles leaned his head on his dad's shoulder. "I still want to learn." And in the silence that followed, Jefferson understood. This was the real legacy. 2 weeks later, Jefferson stood in front of a sleek black glass building in Midtown Manhattan, the headquarters of Langston and Hale, the law firm representing Canning's client. He adjusted his cufflinks, checked the time, and entered. Inside, everything was polished to perfection. Marble floors, brass accents, minimalist artwork. The receptionist, a young black woman in a beige blouse, looked up with surprise when she read his name on the appointment list. "Mr. Jefferson," she said, standing quickly. "They're expecting you upstairs." He nodded once. "Thank you." As he stepped into the elevator, he noticed his reflection, calm, sharp, but tired, not physically. The kind of tired that settles into your bones when you've had to explain your worth too many times. The conference room on the 27th floor had a view that stretched beyond Central Park. 4 men waited at the table. 3 wore suits. The 4th, an older black man with salt and pepper hair and a calm, closed mouth, stood as Jefferson entered. "Luther," Jefferson said, surprised. "Didn't know you'd be here." "I insisted," Luther replied. "They need to be reminded we don't all play the same game." The managing partner cleared his throat. "Mr. Jefferson, thank you for coming. We want to talk about resolution." "Resolution," Jefferson repeated, taking a seat. "Interesting word. You mean a settlement?" One of the junior partners leaned forward. "We'd prefer to avoid court. Yes, it would benefit everyone involved if this remained quiet." Jefferson placed his phone on the table, screen down. "Why? So the next kid gets walked into court without a lawyer?" "Let's not be dramatic," the partner replied. "Was it dramatic when your associate tried to humiliate a child in front of a room full of strangers?" "Silence," Luther interjected. "Let's cut to it. Your client falsely reported a break-in. You pursued charges without verifying facts. You embarrassed yourselves in front of a judge, and now you're worried about optics." The managing partner sighed. "We're prepared to offer a public apology, a contribution to a youth legal defense fund of your choosing, and a private acknowledgement to your son." Jefferson didn't blink. "Miles doesn't need a letter. He needs to know that this kind of thing won't happen again. That's a big promise. No, it's a standard, and from now on your firm should meet it." The room fell still. The offer was on the table. But Jefferson wasn't here for money or even headlines. He was here to make sure they felt what they tried to ignore: accountability. He stood. "I'll draft the terms. You'll review them. If they're watered down, I walk. And I don't walk alone." He turned to Luther. "You'll walk with me?" Luther gave a short nod. "Always." As Jefferson left the room, he felt the weight shift. Not gone, but lighter. Outside, the sky was starting to change color, pale gold bleeding into gray. He checked his watch. Miles would be home soon. They had dinner plans. And this time, no headlines would interrupt them. The soft clink of silverware echoed through the modest Harlem restaurant. It wasn't fancy, just warm, familiar. The kind of place Jefferson had taken Miles since he was a toddler, back when his son couldn't pronounce mac and cheese without adding an extra syllable. Now at the booth by the window, Miles sat across from him, flipping through a folder of sketches. He'd started drawing courtroom scenes, one of Jefferson standing tall, another of himself with a caption bubble that read, "I'm not scared of you." "You thinking about going into law?" Jefferson asked, sipping his iced tea. Miles shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe animation. I could tell stories like what happened. Make it real for people." Jefferson leaned in. "Good stories aren't about making things bigger than they are. They're about making people feel what really happened." Miles nodded, eyes thoughtful. "Like you did with that statement." Jefferson smiled faintly. "Exactly." Their server, a young man in his 20s with a bright smile, walked up with the check. He paused. "You're him, right? Jefferson from the courthouse video?" Jefferson glanced up, cautious. "Yes." The server looked at Miles. "And this must be the legend." Miles blushed, mumbling a soft, "Hi." The server placed the bill on the table but didn't leave right away. "Just wanted to say, that video made me call my dad for the first time in months. Seeing how you looked at your kid, I don't know, it hit me." Jefferson was quiet for a second. "Thanks for telling me." After the server left, Miles grinned. "You're like a celebrity now." Jefferson raised an eyebrow. "Celebrity fades. Character doesn't." Just then, Jefferson's phone buzzed. A text. He glanced at it. "Luther. It's done." They agreed to every word. Jefferson exhaled slowly. The firm had signed on. Full admission of misconduct, a donation to a legal equity initiative, and a written apology to Miles, not just as a formality, but as a boy who'd been wronged. He slid the phone into his jacket pocket and looked back at his son. "Want to know something crazy?" Jefferson asked. Miles perked up. "Yeah?" "I was scared that day, walking into that courtroom. Not because of the law, but because of what I might find when I looked at you. If you were afraid, if you didn't trust me to fix it." Miles was quiet for a moment. "I wasn't scared when you walked in. I knew I didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't know if it mattered." Jefferson leaned across the table, resting a hand on his son's. "It always matters, even when it doesn't feel like it. That's the work, making truth louder than noise, making people care." Outside, the sky was a deepening blue, streaked with the last orange of day. They paid the bill and stepped into the night. As they walked side by side, no cameras followed them, no reporters called their names. Just father and son, two shadows beneath the glow of a street lamp, stronger, wiser, and still walking forward, together.